Here with my boy Jessie Naylor. You are welcome to the Coach's Huddle. This is your boy, the Coach, and we are here for another installment of Niners at Night. As you guys know, me and Jessie, we switch off and alternate every other Monday. So on one Monday, we go on Jessie's channel. On the next Monday, we go on my channel. So this is Coach's channel. This is Coach's time. And now we are here. Finally, Jessie. The season is here, man. Before we get into all of that, how's my guy? How are you doing, Jessie?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing so good. And you're right. The season is here. Preseason's done. We're no longer in preseason. Last game has been played. So when we talk about the season, it's not like in the future. It is current tense. We are in the season officially, man. And roster cut downs are tomorrow, which means we're really in season. Bro, it's here. It's absolutely crazy how it snuck up on us, but we are here.
Yeah, man. I mean, dude, the offseason's been crazy. You know what I mean? And I feel like it was just like maybe like a month ago that we just lost the Super Bowl, right? We were just having conversations about, you know, Eric Armstead and what are the Niners going to do? Like, how big was the pay cut? I remember that. Remember, were you old enough to remember when that was the speculation of the summer? I wonder how much the pay cut was between Eric Armstead and the Niners. Little did we know there was so many other bigger fish to fry throughout the entire offseason. And I just want to get your overall takeaways of what are some of the things that stuck out to you? Now, obviously, it's going to be hard because I'm going to give you a little bit of stipulations. You got to leave Trent and you got to leave Brandon out of this. So they get their whole segment. But now that we're officially in week one, about to play the New York Jets on Monday Night Football, what are some of the things? What are the biggest things that you're going to be holding in your perspective coming into the season? What sticks out most?
Well, I think, you know, to me, I still have to harken back to training camp. And since we've left there's so many other people that have come out and said it. You know, we're going to talk about what Manti Te'o said, but Matt Mayoko's come out and said it in recent days. We've heard Grant talk about it. Almost everybody's brought it up that something seems to be hanging over this team. And maybe it is as simple as it's Trent and Aiyuk, and once they're back, they're good. But something seems to be lingering over this team. Now, it doesn't mean they can't overcome it, but there is a feeling, and it's palpable. So I think there's that. You know, we talk about Super Bowl hangover. Maybe this is what it feels like. It's hard to put into words. It's hard to quantify it. But now that we're in it and we've seen it, maybe this is it. I would also say that I think the strength of this defense has shifted. You know, it's ever since Shanahan's been here in 2019, it's always been the defensive line. It's always been the defensive line, either through the depth, the talent on the first line, how big they are, how opposing they are. That's no longer the case. They're not the big, scary team anymore up front, but the secondary is the best it's been since the 90s, man. It's absolutely insane how deep this secondary is, how talented this secondary is. So I think that's standing out. And then, you know, the rookies are contributing. That's one of the things that I know I talked about as the offseason started, before they went into the draft, was like, at some point, rookies have to start contributing on this team. They contribute across the league. The Chiefs had rookies contribute in the Super Bowl. Every team has rookies contribute, but it seems like the 49ers do this thing where they redshirt players and we have to almost wait a year before we get excited. Not this year. Those guys are contributing. Pooney carved out a spot. Cowing's starting to carve out a spot. Malik Mustafa looks good. We haven't even seen the first round pick yet. So ultimately, Garindo, we just saw him probably take the kick return job this last weekend.
He's got it in my book.
To fall into place, and the rookies are showing out, and they might be able to help this team. So there's a lot of little storylines. Obviously, we know what the big one is. We'll talk about that separate. But for me, that's kind of where I'm at with it. What about you?
My biggest takeaways is that they look human now. There was always this barrier of elite just like this elite standard that they sold me on. I think they sold all of us on it. And it's not like we're assessing the Niners on like our rubric, right? Like we're not assessing what we want from the Niners from like this selfish, desire on what we think a good football team should look like. It's like, nah, dude. Like if you go back over the years, these guys preached this culture. They went so hard about practicing hard. Like that was like the number one calling card of why we were such a hard-nosed team, is that we were the real deal. It wasn't just on Sundays. Like people, you came here and they automatically understood like, dude, I see why they're good here. I get it. Like, dude, we do not practice like this. We do not have this type of intensity. We don't have this much level of like, I remember, and you still have these conversations now. So it's not like, Chris Conley spoke glowingly of Kyle just recently. So it's not as if these things don't exist anymore, but there used to just be this air of professionalism where we were just on the cutting edge of all things NFL, right? Where we were the ones coming out with game plans where, we still come out with good things that's just sound football. But, at this stage of the game, our offense is predictable. We're going to run hard to the left, right? We're going to get play action, and we're going to take our explosives and our shots. We're going to try to hold the ball as long as possible to be able to lean into the defense as much as possible. And then once our defense bails us out early in the game, right, we're going to be able to bounce back and be able to take the run game away with our offense. I mean, we already know how this team is ran. And they just look human now. The defensive line we don't have any depth. For what it's worth, they tried to do, pass rusher by committee. I mean, if that doesn't tell you how much of a fool's errand it is when you see Yetur Gross-Matos and Leonard Floyd get hurt in back-to-back plays. I mean, right now, the Niners legitimately should be looking for a defensive end. Like they should be looking for a good edge or a serviceable edge that's about to get cut. They really need to. I think that's why some guys are not going to make the team this come up for the cuts that are about to hit up tomorrow, is because we still are not done. Like we're still shopping. That's another big takeaway that I've seen in the offseason, is that we are not a complete team. All the offensive starters aren't here. We haven't played with all 11 starters not once this entire offseason. These guys have not played together since the Super Bowl. Think about that.
That's a long time, man. It's a long time to get some continuity. Yeah, for sure.
They have not played together since the Super Bowl. They have not all been on the field together since the Super Bowl. When Trent gets here, this will be the first time that Aaron Banks will have lined up next to Trent since February. And it's August.
Well, think about it like this. Last year, you had Bosa signed 5-6 days before the game. Basically the final week as they're preparing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Everybody just assumed he'd be able to hit the ground running because he's Bosa. I mean, it's Bosa. Nobody's in better shape than Bosa. We all kind of thought that to a T. But even Bosa talked about how he was off, not early, but really a majority of the season because of that. So let's assume that for most players who miss this portion of the offseason, most players are going to start out slow because of it. Not all of them, but let's assume that most will. Well, now you've got CMC, who hasn't been there. You've got Aiyuk, who hasn't been there. And you've got Trent. These are three of your best players on offense. Let's assume all three come back next week in preparation for week 1. I think it's safe to assume that 2 of the 3 are going to be at least not 100%, if not all 3. So what does that mean? What does that mean early in the season? Is the team still good enough to overcome a Jets team that is extremely talented but hasn't proven anything yet? Yeah, maybe. But maybe they're not. And if you start out 0-1, and let's say you lose 2 of the first 4 or 5 games, and then you got the Chiefs, it's like
we're chasing.
Yeah, exactly. Because the number one seed is still very important. Every
Hmm.
game matters to a team like the 49ers, where the number one seed is almost a must. You've got an older team. We talked about it last year, how important the number one seed is. It's going to be just as, if not even more important this year because now they're a year older. They have to get that number one seed for me to feel great about it. This is a team that, for as much as everybody wants to talk about, man, we were this close to winning a Super Bowl. That's true, but you were also this close to losing to the Green Bay Packers in the divisional round.
Hmm.
Do
Yeah.
you want to add an extra game and no bye week, no rest for a team that's older and was this close to losing in the divisional round? I don't. I don't. Not when the rest of the teams have caught up. So week 1 versus the Jets, you can say, who cares? You start out 0-1, it's a long season. It is, but every game matters for a team like the 49ers. So I don't want them to start slow. I do want them to find a way to beat the Jets, and maybe they can, but it doesn't feel great knowing that at best, all 3 of these players are coming in with no offseason. At worst, 2 of them may not even play week 1.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's you know, and all right, so let's graduate the conversation to camp. We saw this during camp when we were there. It was visible, where you could see how flat the practices were. I'm sorry, Hannibal's over here wilding out behind me. I like hear him doing the most.
I don't think I hear him. Maybe they can. I can't hear him.
Yeah. I think you know what? I think my girlfriend's here. So, really, it's it's something that they couldn't hide during the first day of camp. And the first day, what really distracted me was it being the first day of padded practice, right? Like that. And for you, it was a letdown. You expected there to be juice. You expected there to be not juice, no pun intended, but you expected there to be energy. And you just didn't get that. There was a lot of stuff that fell flat. And at the time, it just kind of put me in a position where you had to just be honest about some of the things that you saw. And it was a little frustrating. It was a little
Hold on, let me take it for a
yeah. Can
second
you
because I
please
got
take this over?
yeah,
Because
yeah.
I don't know what is going on. Go ahead, man.
You're fine. Well, I actually wanted to address the chat a little bit because I see that multiple people have said the 49ers always start slow. They always start slow. That's true, except for 2 seasons. And guess what 2 seasons it was that the 49ers didn't start slow? It's the 2 years that they went to the Super Bowl. So you can say, hey, the 49ers start slow. I mean, they made it to 3 NFC championships. Well, yeah, they did, but they lost. They didn't make it to Super Bowls in the seasons they started slow. 2019, they started out on fire. Last year, they started out on fire. The years they started slow, it was an uphill battle. And it's like by the time they got to the NFC Championship, they were beaten down physically. Last year, they weren't. They had the extra bye week. 2019, they weren't. They had the extra bye week. They were fresh teams. That's what aided in going to the Super Bowl. So we can talk about, hey, they usually start slow and they'll still be good. Yeah, I'm not saying they're a bad team if they start slow. They can certainly dig themselves out. But the 2 seasons they didn't start slow happened to coincide with the 2 seasons they actually reached the pinnacle game. And that's where the 49ers are at. We're not only trying to reach that game, they're trying to get over the hump and win that game. So starting slow is not on the menu for a team that is going to go to a Super Bowl, in my opinion.
Yeah, thank you, Jesse. I mean, for what it's worth, man, they're gonna have to be able to move forward in the right direction, man. And hopefully, we'll see exactly where that takes us. I mean, and really, if we're being fair to where they stand right now, with the team, you would just have to say if Trent Williams and Brandon Aiyuk not being there is a huge issue. And you know quite frankly, we can go back and forth about exactly where the numbers lie. I mean, I'm hearing reports on Twitter about actual numbers about BA being signed. We had, well, with real numbers being signed, we saw that CeeDee Lamb just got signed to a 4-year, $134 million deal, making $34 million a year. So are they going to be here by week 1? I mean, like, honestly, we can go back and forth through the entire saga of the ups and downs, and the new reports that we've heard about Trent Williams today. We're saying that they're basically nowhere close to a deal, and he's resolute in his position, saying that he's not going to be here for week 1. You know, you could say that, but none of it matters if they show up by week 1, right? Fans are not going to care. So,
no, nor should they.
Are they going to be here?
Yeah, I think so. I do. I mean, you know me, I've been saying the whole time that I think BA is going to get signed, and I think Trent will too. I think the 49ers know exactly what the demands are from Trent Williams. Now, we may not know. Maybe it's fully guaranteed money. Maybe it's not. I mean, whatever the demand is from Trent, they know two things. They know exactly what the demand is, and they know he's not playing around. They know he will sit. They know he'll sit. Trent Williams is not going to accept his contract as it sits. He's not going to play games. He's not going to do the back and forth. He's going to lay it out. This is what I want. This is what I need. And I'll be there ready in uniform. If not, you can catch me later. And he will sit out. And we know that because A, he hasn't been there all offseason. And B, he did this in Washington. Now, Brandon Aiyuk's a little bit of a different story. If the 49ers don't reach a resolution with Brandon Aiyuk as far as an extension, I'd call his bluff. Because the rumor is, or the thought is, because Shanahan said it in the post-game press conference, that they required BA to be there. And BA showed up for the preseason game because he didn't want to lose out on money. He's been there all offseason because he hasn't wanted to lose out on money. But this same guy is telling you, hey, if I don't have a resolution to my deal, I'm not showing up week 1. Are you sure about that? Because you haven't been willing to sit up till this point. You weren't even willing to not travel to a preseason game. So let's see it. Let's see if you're actually willing to miss out on game checks, because I don't believe it. You said you weren't going to show up to training camp. You were a hold-in. You said you're willing to miss game checks, yet you're showing up to preseason games that are mandatory. I'm not trading you. We need you for a Super Bowl run. We'll figure it out after this year. Are you playing or are you not? I actually think that, and I do think a deal gets done with BA, and I think ultimately this is a non-point. But if it doesn't, I wouldn't trade him. I'd call his bluff, and I think he would show up. Trent, on the other hand, I would bet almost anything that I own that he will not show up under his current deal. He just won't do it.
I mean, does things get complicated with Trent of not showing up when it comes to BA? You know, it's like, all right, so how do you ask Trent to come back and BA's not done? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that could be a whole nother dynamic with Trent's side where he can be saying, like, look, bro, not only do I want my bread, but why y'all, you know, not for nothing, what's going on with Brandon? Like, you know, I'm not coming back if Brandon's not coming back. Like, I know what this kid is worth to our offense. Like, what are we doing right now? Really, I think like the biggest thing that strikes me right now is that this is like classic Niners, bro. And what I mean in that is they always think that they're better than the process. Like, nah, we're gonna have our cake and eat it too. Like, nah, we're not gonna stick to the stipulations of how the league works. We're gonna do it exactly the way we want because we're the Niners, right? And for what it's worth, I got the Niners just holding back, not paying these dudes because they want to make sure that they're in the best position for next year. Like, they're really not all in. This is all about them keeping a certain status quo, in my opinion. Because if this was about winning, we got over $50 million in cap space. They'd be signed. This isn't about winning. This is about their process in doing things.
Yeah, I mean, Shanahan has kind of made it clear. It's not It's about winning, but winning enough to be relevant. Winning, because I believe the way that Shanahan has talked and the way this organization has talked is, yes, they want to win. Of course, they want to win a Super Bowl, but they want to be in the conversation of winning a Super Bowl because they feel like eventually they'll break through. This was a Tony Dungy thing. Tony Dungy did this same exact thing in Tampa. It's the reason the Glazers moved on from him and brought in John Gruden was because Tony Dungy was all about, hey, as long as we're competitive year after year after year, we'll eventually break through. But you look at like what the Rams did, it was like, no, we're going all in this year. We hoped that the 49ers were going to do that. We're like, this is the all-in year. It's like, well, is it though? Because if it was, you would think these things wouldn't linger the way that they have. So maybe they don't look at it the same with the same urgency that we do. They don't look at it as the all-in year that they got to get it done this year. They are trying to factor in everything, including future years and what it takes to be competitive past this year as well. And they're trying to weigh out the pros and cons of everything. Some coaches and some organizations are ran that way, and some are, hey, we go all in. And sometimes you get lucky, right? We can talk about the great stories of where you go all in. The Rams when they won the Super Bowl, that Tampa Bay Bucks team when they got rid of Tony Dungy and brought in Gruden and they went all in. There are those success stories, but then there are stories that are the opposite, where you have teams like the Eagles. Remember the Eagles all-star team they put together and they couldn't even make the playoffs?
Yeah.
So it does go both ways. It's not like it's all good if you just go all in, you're going to win a Super Bowl. That's not the way it works. And so you do have to figure out the balance. And knowing the way that they operate, they do value the future almost as much as they do the present. And so for them, they've got to look at it and say, okay, yes, we would love to go all in. And yes, we need Brandon Aiyuk here, but we're not going to pay X amount on year 4 because we're going to need that year. That's when Purdy his contract kicks in, year 3, year 4 of that deal. We're going to need all that money. Maybe that's how they're looking at things. And so it really is hard for them to acquiesce on year 4 that we've heard is the hang up with Brandon Aiyuk. So that's why my point is like, listen, call his bluff. At worst case scenario, he shows up week 10, week 11. I mean, as long as you got Trent in the building, I think you're still a playoff team. Let him come in week 10, week 11 and push for the Super Bowl down the stretch and then figure him out after the year. I think the only option that shouldn't be available, and I think that it is available, unfortunately, but it shouldn't be, is trading Brandon Aiyuk. Not now. It's too late for that.
No. Yeah. And you know what? And I know what you mean by that. It's not the fact that you're saying it because of sentimental reasons, like BA's value, but you're saying it from an organization standpoint. Like there's no deal that makes us better trading him right now. There's no deal that we can get unless we get a team that completely just tilts everything towards us. There's nothing that's out there to be had where we would actually feel like we came out on the better end of it, or at least where we didn't get hosed. That's why I feel like Pittsburgh is so eager to just keep hanging around because they know by hook or crook, no matter what happens, they win this deal, no matter what. So that's why Pittsburgh is always in my opinion, that's why Pittsburgh is always in the wing, because they know that no matter what deal we make with them, no matter how they shift this, if they want nothing but picks, if they want players and picks, whatever. We know that part of this deal is happening is because they can't get the deal done with their player. So we're going to lean on that. That's leverage number one. So that's why I agree with you 100% on understanding, like, yo, if we make a deal with anybody right now, it's because it was personal between them and BA. It wasn't because of the money. Because if it was about the money, then they would know that whatever assets they're getting right now is nowhere near what BA is worth in the immediate, right? So
I want to say this real quick too, because a couple people brought this up in the chat. It's like, oh, you're tripping. Why are you worried about the future? I'm not worried about the future. I'm the all-in mentality. I'm trying to give you a glimpse into what I think the 49ers are looking at and the way the 49ers operate things. You've heard Kyle Shanahan say this, that they do worry about the future. You've heard John Lynch say this. The way they look at it, we look at it as fans, and I agree with this, It's an all-in season. You do what you got to do to get these guys here and go all in. Worry about next year, and 2 years from now, 2 years from now. But right now, do what it takes to get it done because this is the season to do it. I don't believe the 49ers organization looks at it this way, and that's why you have these holdups with Trent Williams and with Brandon Aiyuk. If it was as simple as, hey, that they look at it the way we do and they don't care about the future, these deals would have been done. They would have been done. We don't care what you pay Trent. We don't care what you pay BA. We just want them in the building. The 49ers don't look at it that way, and that's obvious. Otherwise, they would be here.
Yeah. So, I mean, the maths on this channel. We be, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're not just going to sit here and like sweep things under the rug. So they know they're not going to win it. They know this is not a Super Bowl season.
I don't agree with that. Here's what I will say.
If it's taken all, do you see why I'm saying that though?
I understand where you're coming from. They just know it's not a guarantee. So if you go all in on this season and you don't win and you mortgage next year or the year after because financially you put yourself in a bind, they may not think it's worth it because they're not, you can't ever be 100% sure you're going to win a Super Bowl, right? And so to them, they got to figure out what's more important, remaining competitive so that you're in the conversation in 2025, 2026, and 2027, or going all in this year, taking a step back for a year or two and trying to rebuild it up. I just don't think they're willing to do that. I think they want everything. They want this year to be a championship caliber year, but they also want that for the year after and the year after and the year after that. And it's like, eventually that window closes. That window does close, and they have to understand where they're at in this process. You are at that final year before you've got to retool things. You've got way too many free agents coming up, but I don't think they see it the same way.
Yeah. Does the fan base have the stomach for a transition year? Like, can we?
They do if we win a Super Bowl, but they don't this year. Hell no, not this year. No, this year cannot be the transition year. Not now. It's way too late. If you had established this as a transition year early in the offseason and made that clear, you kind of could have groomed everybody and gotten them to that point.
Right.
But the 49ers, or the fan base, believes this is the year. This is the all-in year, and you haven't.
No, they don't. I'm pushing back against that. I'm sorry, not you, but in your heart of hearts, I think that if you got a balanced 49ers fan, by themselves and asked them, do you feel the same way about going to get a Super Bowl this year than the same way you did last year, even with everything that happened with Trey Lance and the whole nine? I think the average 49ers fan would tell you no.
But why is that? That's because Trent and Aiyuk haven't been here. If they had just signed Trent and Aiyuk, they would fit. In fact, I bet you those same fans that say no, in a week, if Trent and Aiyuk are here and reports are good that, oh man, they look like the same guys they did last year, all you need is a couple good Lombardi tweets and show I'm the smartest guy in the building and I'll tell you everything that's going on. And they're like, oh, we're back, baby. Ayuk's back. Trent Williams is back. Lombardi says we're the greatest thing since sliced bread. We're back. I would think the average 49er fan would be all in, because I bet you this same fan base that would say no, also without Trent and Aiyuk, would be like, team's still good enough to make the playoffs. So now if you add in Trent and Aiyuk, it's like, well, yeah, we can win a Super Bowl. Hell yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that would be a prisoner of the moment take. But I think even if Trent, like, we know, all right, man, we talked about it moments ago. It took Nick Bosa is pretty much one of the most prepared professional athletes that I have
bring up Jay's
across.
comment. Bring up Jay's comment. Thank you, Jay. I agree with you. You're not the average 49er fan.
Hold on.
You guys are not. The people in this chat are not the average 49er fan. So when I say the 49er fan, I'm not talking about the people rolling in on the left as we're talking. I'm talking about just pull the average 49er fan.
Okay, yes.
The average 49er fan isn't taking in all the content from everybody. They
That's
read the
true.
periodic, the article from time to time. They may check in from time. The average fan is not, hey, you're here during the off season fiending for content. That is not the average 49er fan. It's just not.
Well, I mean, I feel like the fans that are on here, even though they have their own personas, right?
Mhm.
I still feel like the fans that watch YouTube are very well informed, though. Like,
That's
so
what I'm saying. They are, yes, but they're not the average fan. These guys are smarter than the average fan. I think we're giving too much credit to the average fan, and not just in the 49ers fan base. I'm just saying in general in football. The average fan doesn't take in content like this. They just don't.
that's why we're here. So, I don't know, man. Like, all right, I'll give you that. Like, if you want to say like the lay fan, like the ESPN fan, I get it.
Mhm.
Who
Yeah.
they catch the games, they're still watching First Take and everything, the whole nine. I get that, but I just think if you polled like somebody who's in the know, I don't think anybody would be saying that they feel confident about this being a Super Bowl season.
9 out of 10 people in this chat wouldn't be confident.
Yeah, I think that.
I agree
yeah,
with that, but that's not the average fan. So yes, if you want to change it to this chat or the typical chat we have, I would say, yeah, you probably get an 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10. Like, hell no, I'm not confident. You know what I mean? It just depends. It depends on, like I said, the average fan is not this chat, in my opinion. Because think about it, the numbers say it. What is the biggest 49er channel on YouTube? Is it Chat Sports or is it Brad? Either way,
Brad,
the number. Okay,
Brad is probably the biggest guy.
Okay, so and he's the biggest because a lot of aggregated content, right? He brings
He brings
everything
to me and feeding it to me.
He brings everything that you need to know about the 49ers into one space, and he does a fantastic job about it. Okay.
Right.
But that's why he's number one, not because it's his voice, but if you look at the people that are just talking heads, like what we do, even the people that are plugged in with the team, the top dog is at like 75K. How many millions of 49er fans on there? You're telling me the best you can get is 75,000 subscribers? We're not even scratching the surface of the average 49er fan at this point.
That's so true. We're the few, the proud.
Yeah,
the Marines.
The Marines?
I mean, I definitely get that, man. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to get into like this whole like, like circle jerk fest of like us trying to like put on that we expect a team. I don't even think that, what's crazy is that I don't think any of the players have said anything about the Super Bowl. Have they? Has anybody said anything? They've been asked, virtue signaling to a championship? Like, this is a championship year. We're still trying to push to go get a Super Bowl. Like, think about all of those conversations that and interviews that we would have, like, where, like, dude, I hear George Kittle's voice in the back of my head right now. The rundown answers always, you got a team that's loaded with Nick Bosa and Dre Greenlaw. Like, his whole shtick. And, we're a team
normally got Debo getting into some beef with someone all off season. And
like, if you notice, they have really piped down. Nobody's
maybe that's a good thing, though. Maybe that aids them well.
Maybe it is.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I just notice it. It's something noticeable. Like, this is a team that like puts slogans on their year, right? What would this year be called? 1, 2, 3, sign BA and Trent. Like, what's the slogan of this year?
How do we not have a quarterback situation and we have more drama than we've ever had? How did that happen?
Brock's just brocking.
This was supposed to be the year of like boring offseason, and we were like, but next year you're gonna have Brock's contract. Like, there will be talking points, and it's like, yeah, but no, this was supposed to be the boring offseason, and it couldn't have been more opposite. This was the most content-filled offseason that we possibly have had in the 3 years that I've been here, and it had nothing to do with the quarterback position. Nothing. I didn't see that one coming. That wasn't on my bingo card.
Nah, I didn't see that coming either, man. I mean, I I thought that the BA situation would be somewhat of a distraction, but I'm not gonna lie, I didn't call it. I didn't call it being this deep. Not all the way into the bitter end. I didn't see this. Even with all of the talking through social media, I thought, man, oh, he's in the building, the hold in. I'm like, there's no way that they're not going to be able to get this done with him in the building. I think that's something that's also interesting is that BA is still going to meetings.
Yeah.
He's still going to meetings.
Because he's not willing to get fined. That's why I'm saying at worst case, I would call his bluff. I'm not trading him.
Yeah. I don't see them walking because there's just nowhere else to go. Even with Trent, it's like, yeah, you're not satisfied with where your contract is, but you're in the middle of a contract, bro. Like you got years left. You're not saying I'm not willing to play. You're saying like, hey man, on the rest of these years I have, can I just get some guaranteed money? This is just months ago, not even a full calendar year. This is months ago where Trent was in front of the camera saying, remember I used to call this out? We talk about this on the phone all the time. But before, remember when you guys and everybody would say, man, this may be Trent's last year. This may be, we don't know how long we're going to keep Trent. And remember how I used to always push back? And I'm like, man, are you guys crazy?
He's not walking away from all that money.
Thank you. I was like, he's not walking away from all of this money. Are you crazy? Yeah. Trent's not going anywhere. And then that's when Trent started putting out all of those comments like, man, because people were actually asking him, you know, in post-game interviews, hey, man, like how much
people celebrated this offseason because he said he'll be back. Remember that? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. We got Trent for one more year. We're good.
He did it early. Like, don't even worry about it. I'm back. And now all of a sudden, like, he doesn't want to come back at all. It's like, dude, you just want your money, man. Like,
of course.
Trent's not going anywhere. That's for me. Like, I would be more surprised if Trent didn't come back than BA getting traded. Because I think with BA, it's personal. I think that Kyle and BA actually got beef. I really believe that. You know what I'm saying? I think with Trent, it's just it's a numbers situation, honestly.
Yeah, and it may be. Because we've obviously talked about this situation a lot, and I know we're going to talk about it more over the next 2 weeks, especially if these guys aren't here because the season's here. But one thing we've been talking about, okay, and we brought it up earlier, is the feeling. How there's a feeling. It doesn't matter. I don't care what anybody says. If you weren't there, you didn't get the feeling. Mayoko said it, everything, that there's something over this team, heavy over this team. Well, Manti Te'o actually brought this up. He was there, right? He saw this team.
Yes.
For preseason. Mm-hmm. And remember how people used to talk about this team. When people would see the 49ers for the first time in person, they'd be like, they're different. I mean, the size in person is just, different. They're just different than everybody else in the league, but different in a good way. Manti Te'o was there and he says, yeah, no, they're different, but not in the way that we expect the 49ers to be different. They're different in a way that swagger seems to be gone. Do you have that clip by chance?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now. You ready for me?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm about to play this right now. Here it goes. Here goes the Manti Te'o comments right here.
Look, there's a look that you see when somebody truly believes they're better than you. And I think for the past 5 to 10 years, we've got so accustomed to the San Francisco 49ers walking around not only the NFC West, but the NFL in general as these big bullies. You watch Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel coming out of the locker room with that bump box, and you watch them get into that scuffle in the pregame, and you watch their dominant defense and their run game. We got so accustomed to that. When I flipped on the TV and watched their past 2 preseason games when their starters played, and I just see an emotionally drained team. They've been to the NFC Championship 4 in the past 5 years. They've been to the Super Bowl twice, and they lost that Super Bowl to the same team. It reminds me of when I was with the Saints in 2017. We had the Minneapolis Miracle. We had to suffer that. That is just emotionally draining. Then the very next year, we play the Rams in the NFC Championship, and we have the no-call PI. We go through that. I can only imagine for the San Francisco 49ers what that feels like. And then I put on we just saw the Seattle Seahawks preseason game, and you see that party that's in there.
Yeah.
The first drive, Geno Smith goes down there, hits Jackson Smith and Jigba, hits DK Metcalf, and that's without Kenneth Walker. That's without Tyler Lockett.
Mm-hmm.
And they're out there having a blast. Mike Robb's on there, Michael Bennett's on the broadcast. It's just a party. It's not the same, when I watch the San Francisco 49ers. So they're not the favorite.
So those are the comments from Manti Te'o. I mean, I gotta be able to just bring up one thing. It's funny that he remembers a lot, but he can't remember the fact that he ain't have no girlfriend after all of them years. This is real funny, Manti. Okay, I just had to he had to catch a stray real quick. Like he was chirping. He was chirping. What are your thoughts about those comments, man?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. To me, it was just validation to what we've been saying. We felt it. We saw it. We felt it. We know the energy that wasn't there. And I think early on, people really pushed back to what we were saying. But when Mayoko said it, and then Larry, I even heard said it, and now you've got national media members talking about it. Edelman, everybody kind of forgets, or maybe it wasn't talked about enough, but even Edelman, the preseason game a week ago, also said it, right?
Yeah.
He said, hey, usually it's teams that win a Super Bowl that kind of puff their chest out and everybody wants to get paid and everybody's a little too big for their britches. He goes, I don't remember a team losing a Super Bowl and having that mentality. He's like, this is a Super Bowl winning team mentality. That shouldn't be happening here. So he called it out, and it's interesting because Edelman is one of those people that does have the cachet. He's won those rings, right? He's one of the few people that can actually come out and talk about it and tell you what he's seeing isn't right. And you're like, yeah, I mean, what am I going to say? Like you've walked that walk. You've talked that talk. Some of these other players that are our analysts haven't gone through that. They haven't won the rings. They don't know fully what it takes. So when a player like that comes out and talks, I listen. When Tom Brady this offseason talked about what it took to be a competing team, and he talked about how important the offensive line is, and if he looked at a team with a good offensive line, he knew that was a competitive team. I'm like, that's not the 49ers. That's not the 49ers. So when these guys talk, you have to listen. You have to pay attention. And to me, it's like everybody is kind of saying it without saying it. It's like something's off. Something is off. Now, the good news is we're not 7 weeks into the season, right? This thing isn't over yet. It hasn't even technically started. So all of this can change. But as of right now, something is off, man. It just is.
I agree. It's palpable. You feel it when you watch them practice. You can see they're kind of just going through the motions at times. And this isn't, all right, look. So look, this is why I walk on eggshells when I make commentary about like the team being flat, is because it's really easy to make a comment like this. It's really easy to say that, you know what I'm saying? All we're doing is being negative. But to be honest with you, in a sense, we're not. We're talking about the difference of what this team has shown us before. It's not as if we're just dumping on them. You know what I'm saying? Like we ain't just shitting on the team where it's like, oh man, they look like ass. Like, Debo's not in shape. The line looks like this. It's like, no, we're talking about the stark comparison of what we're used to seeing, right? It's not as if we're just pulling this out of pure thin air. And I'm not trying to single you out, babe. But what I am saying is that, the Niners are the Niners. These guys are the ones who showed us the difference in like, swarm to the ball. Like there's almost nomenclature that we have learned through the culture of this team. Like people who don't know anything about football know what swarm is because of this defense, right? People who don't know anything about offensive football know about wide zone now. They know about inside and outside zone. They know about play action. They know about what we do on offense. Like this team has elevated our acumen. It has. It's team, and you almost take on the type of you take on the attitude of the team that you root for. That's why the fans are so proud. is because this team put out a standard that almost educated us on what real football is. And you can't gaslight when all of a sudden we have the temerity to say, this don't look the same. This
Well, and
doesn't
listen,
look like what
we're
you
not
told
saying
us.
that they're not one time did we say, hey, they're not going to be competitive or they can't kick this, right? I literally just said the season hasn't even started yet, right? So it's weird. Something's certainly off now, but that doesn't mean it has to be off by week 3 or even the end of week 1, right? Winning changes everything. But let me put it into different terms for everybody, because I feel like everybody can resonate with this one, because his next comment was, you don't know how people are feeling. And you're right. I'm not trying to be a therapist. I'm not telling you how they feel or don't feel. I'm telling you the vibe they're putting off. Okay. So I'm going to give a scenario. Throughout your life, you've gone into restaurants, you've gone into retail locations. You've gone to make some sort of purchase, somewhere to spend your money. Okay. And every single person in here can tell you that when you walk into, let's just take Best Buy, for example. You go into one Best Buy and then you go into another one. You can tell what the vibe of that store is. You get a feel as soon as you walk in. Are you welcomed or are you not?
Yeah.
How does it feel? How are the employees moving around? Do they have a pep to their step? Are they smiling? Are they greeting you? Or are you walking in and everybody's the employees are chilling with each other, talking to each other? They're moving slow. They take the return and they kind of slowly turn around and put the rubber band on with the receipt and set it aside. And, hey, how can I help you? Next customer. Everybody knows what that's like. Everybody's either been to a restaurant or a store like that where it's like, geez, man, do you even want me here? That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
With the San Francisco 49ers. I'm not trying to psychoanalyze if they're confident. I'm telling you the vibe that they're putting out. I'm telling you, when I was there last year, they had a swagger or a confidence that came through into the stands. Every second of that practice, you knew this team was destined for something really special that year. You felt it right from jump. You didn't have to wait to see a 6-0 start to feel it. You knew it right away. And every chance they had to talk about it, they told you how they felt. That feeling is not there at all this year. I never once at practice got that feeling, let alone all day, every day that I was there. That feeling never came across to me. Not once. Not once. And that's what Manti Te'o's telling you about. It jumps off the screen. It's palpable. You can feel it. It's hard to explain, but there's just a feeling to it.
Yeah. You can feel it in your plums.
Yeah. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. You've been to a restaurant where you feel like you're not welcome, or a retail store or something. That's what it is.
Oh, yeah. Pretty much all the time. So, I mean, I know, I mean, that's a great analogy. I mean, that's exactly what it is. You just don't feel like they're geared for the season, and maybe they are tired. I don't think necessarily Manti Te'o was hating. He just needs to worry about his own team. It was a trash take. You know what I'm saying? But I don't like hearing from him. That's kind of one of the things. It was just annoying. It's just like, Manti Te'o is like the Meg of NFL history. It's like, shut up, Meg. Shut up. It's just like trash ass take. It's horrible ass take, bro. So, like, I want to get into the last topic of the show, man. We got about 5 minutes left before we got to get up out of here, guys. It's going to be a quick one today. But Pro Football Focus, the Athletic came out with their regular quarterback rankings through tiers by anonymous executives and coaches in the NFL. And we looked at the certain tiers that came out. In tier 1 was Mahomes, Burrow, Allen. There were only 3 quarterbacks in tier 1. And then in tier 2 was Lamar, Matt Stafford, Justin Herbert, Aaron Rodgers, CJ Stroud, Dak Prescott, Jared Goff, Jalen Hurts. Can't believe Jalen Hurts made tier 2. Brock Purdy and Kirk Cousins, putting Brock Purdy at 12th overall.
12th overall.
Give me your thoughts, man. What do you think about this?
I think it's fair. I mean, when we did our rankings, I had him at 10, you had him at 11. ESPN had a list earlier this offseason where they pull random executives, coaches, whatever, and they had him at 11. And then here you go. You've got another poll. Now, this one comes out every year, and I like that they do tiers, but even within those tiers, they do rankings based off of how it is. But the question is simple. Is this quarterback tier 1 or tier 2 or tier 3? And every executive, coach, whatever, gives a blurb about that player, and then they will say, hey, this quarterback's tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3. They take the average. They come up with a rating system. For example, Brock Purdy, his average was tier 2, but it was 2.3. That was his overall average. Okay. And then that's how they place you, is based off of your score, and the lower the score, the better. So having Brock Purdy at 12 is where they've got him,
Right.
just behind Jalen Hurts. ESPN had him at 11. You had him at 11, and I had him at 10.
11. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, no, I think this is totally fair. I know that there's a big chunk of this fan base, more than what you thought when I put the poll out on Twitter, that thinks he's elite, that thinks he's a top 5 guys, all those things. No, he's not. I mean, that's not the way that he's viewed by people that do this for a living. And I think that they got this. I don't think they got it fully right. In my opinion, there's some players that, I would switch around, but I think anywhere from 10 to 14 is a fair ranking for Brock at this point.
Well, speaking of that, did you see the recent reports from Dan Orlovsky saying that he thought that Brock was labeled elite? Did you see that?
No, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, he came out with like his latest quarterback polls on ESPN, and he came out with his tier of his tier of elite quarterbacks, and he believes that Brock Purdy is elite.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Who is his elite quarterbacks?
Hold on, I'm looking for it now. But it recently came out. Opposite of Brock Purdy. Hold on. I mean, Dan Orlovsky is such a weird guy. I'm just trying to figure out. You know what I mean? He's the type of guy where you want to respect his word, but it's kind of like, when nobody's standing on the limb, it's like, here comes Dan's like, well, I believe him. And it's like, not you, Dan. Anybody but you.
Yeah, I'm never going to discredit anybody's opinion. I hate it when people are like, well, you sucked as a quarterback. It's like, he played. You know what I mean?
No,
and I also hate when people,
he's a guy.
But I also hate it when people like take players at gospel, because here's the thing is players aren't talent evaluators. Like, they're not. They're players, and they know what it's supposed to look like, but they don't evaluate talent. They're not in front offices. That's not what they're good at. That's not what their job is,
No, I look at players evaluating talent on the same ilk as Michael Jordan running the basketball team.
Yeah. Tom Brady just put out his top 5. Now, it happens to be that his top 5 is like the exact same as my top 5. So I would love to be like, yeah, listen, the GOAT said his top 5 is the same as mine. Well, yeah, of course I'd put something into it, but at the same time, as great as Tom Brady was as a player, his list isn't the end all be all either, because he's not the talent evaluator. That's not what he's paid to do.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that you really can't assess a quarterback until he gets paid, right? I think that's the biggest thing for Brock, is that Brock has ultimate grace with me until he becomes the guy, until he gets that $50+ million deal where it's 100% on him, right? That's when I'm going to start, when these conversations are even going to pique my interest, right? Where I'm even going to seriously say, all right, well, I think Brock is a top 10 quarterback. Or I think this is exactly where Brock deserves to be, right? I just think that right now, we're at the position right now where it's just a little too much. It's just a little too premature. But I do think that Brock is a top 10 quarterback, bar none, if he replicates what he did last year, this year. Top 10 quarterback, bar none. So right now, we're all kind of jumping around right now. What do you want to close out with, Jess?
Yeah, with that, it's, yes, I would say so, that he would be. But these things are week to week, and this is what's so hard about a quarterback ranking. It's like they're year to year for sure, but they definitely can be week to week. It's like, man, this player who I had at number 9 had an awful week, and this player that I had at number 10 had a great week. Like right now in this moment, I would take number 10 over number, you know what I mean? Like you can literally fluctuate week to week with a power ranking of some sort. But yeah, I would think for all intents and purposes, if he has a season like that, unless there's 10 other guys that have put together multiple seasons that are better than that, that's going to be, it would be hard to argue that, you know what I mean? It would be.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I'm gonna tell you this right now. I mean, do you have time to hear the Dan Orlovsky take or no? Because I know you have a hard
I gotta
stop.
go. Yeah, I gotta go.
But it's cool, bro. Hey, man, look. All right, guys, I'm sorry, but today we're gonna close out just a tad bit earlier. Usually we go just a little bit over an hour anyway, but duty calls. We got to be able to get some things together. Jesse's got to go be a dad, and I got to go be a boyfriend and a dog dad. So, look, man, this is the coach. Stay low and keep your feet moving. Jesse will be on. What do you got coming up, Jess?
Tomorrow, Sunil, Last Second Sports. Check it out. Yep.
All right. And I'll be back on tomorrow at 12
You might have some super chats, by the way, that I don't know if you have supers or what.
You know what, dude? I'll be over here.
I'll jump out. I'll jump out and you take your supers
and
on
the way
out.
I'll
good?
holler at you, bro. Good luck, bro.
All right, man. Later.
All right. So look, $9.99. Thank you, Manhattan John. Do we think that after a year of Kyle playing with this new toy CMC that we might start to see some new creativity in the run game? Something crazy like running right? Well, you can't run right because we can't block right, John. You know this. But I think you do see the creativity with CMC with how Kyle is dialing some things up. But for the most part, I think that we're pretty much tapped out on the run game as far as what we're going to get from CMC as far as creativity is concerned. I think we're kind of leaning more on the preservation side of things with Christian. He's still a great runner, but Christian's going to have his curated runs. He's probably going to get about 15 runs a game. And I would see the emergence of Jordan Mason, really. JP. Dale, thank you. $2. Niner fans loyal as hell, though. Yeah, we are loyal. You know what I'm saying? And that's just, I mean, we're literally called the faithful, man. So look, guys, it's week 1. The season is starting. And I'm excited to see exactly what we roll out with in week 1. But until then, on Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Western, 9 a.m. Pacific, it's going to be the Faithful Review with Tom on Wednesday. This is the coach. Love you guys, man. Stay low and keep your feet moving.